The file in front of you was never officially closed. The investigators moved on. The witnesses stopped talking. The leads ran dry, but the case never closed. What you are about to hear has been documented. The timeline, the evidence, the questions that were never answered. Welcome to case number unknown. Let's open the file. On a quiet Saturday afternoon in August 2005, employees of Brazil's central bank in Fortaleza opened the vault and discovered something that defied comprehension. Roughly $70 million in untraced banknotes had vanished overnight. There were no broken windows, no forced doors, no alarms triggered, and no hostages taken. The money had simply disappeared, swallowed by the earth itself. What investigators would soon uncover beneath the streets of Fortaleza was one of the most audacious and meticulously planned heists in the history of crime. This is the story of how a group of ordinary Brazilians dug a tunnel straight into one of the most secure vaults in South America, and how the perfect crime ultimately destroyed every single person involved. To understand how this heist was even possible, you need to understand the target. The Banco Central do Brasil branch in Fortaleza, the capital of Ceará state in northeastern Brazil, served as a regional repository for currency. It held massive quantities of used banknotes, bills that had been circulated, collected, and were awaiting either redistribution or destruction. These notes were critically important to the thieves for one reason: they were unsequenced and untraceable. Unlike fresh currency with consecutive serial numbers, these bills could be spent anywhere in the world without raising a single red flag. The vault itself sat beneath the bank building, protected by reinforced concrete, steel doors, electronic sensors, and round-the-clock security. On paper, it was impenetrable, but the men who planned this operation weren't interested in going through the front door. They were going under it. The scheme began roughly 3 months before the heist, in May of 2005. A small group of conspirators rented a commercial property on Rua 25 de Março, a modest street located approximately 250 feet from the bank. They registered a business there, a front company selling artificial grass and landscaping supplies. The sign on the storefront read, "Grama Sintética." To the neighbors, it appeared to be just another small enterprise trying to make a go of it in a competitive market. Delivery trucks came and went. Workers entered and exited at regular hours. Nobody questioned it. Nobody had any reason to. But behind the storefront, in a back room concealed from public view, a team of men was digging. Day after day, night after night, they excavated a tunnel that would stretch beneath the city block, under streets and sidewalks, under sewer lines and utility cables, all the way to the reinforced floor of the central bank vault. The engineering involved was extraordinary. The tunnel measured roughly 260 feet in length, nearly 4 feet in height, and was wide enough for a man to crawl through while pulling carts of dirt behind him. The walls were reinforced with wooden planks to prevent cave-ins. The tunnel was equipped with electric lighting, a rudimentary air circulation system using fans and PVC piping, and even a plastic lining to manage moisture and groundwater seepage. The excavated earth, estimated at several thousand cubic feet of soil and clay, was carefully removed from the property in bags, likely carried out in the same trucks that ostensibly delivered landscaping supplies. The sheer volume of dirt that had to be moved without attracting suspicion remains one of the most impressive logistical feats of the entire operation. The group reportedly included individuals with backgrounds in engineering, excavation, and even mathematics. Some accounts suggest the team consulted experts in soil mechanics to ensure the tunnel would hold. Others point to an insider at the bank who may have provided blueprints or at least critical information about the vault's location and the thickness of its floor. What is certain is that by early August 2005, the tunnel was complete. It terminated directly beneath the vault floor of the Banco Central. On the night of Friday, August 5th, into the early morning hours of Saturday, August 6th, the team breached the final layer of reinforced concrete from below. They entered the vault. Inside, they found approximately 164 million Brazilian reais, the equivalent of roughly 71.6 million US dollars at the time. The money was stored in large containers. The thieves could not take it all. They loaded as much as they could carry through the narrow tunnel, filling bags and carts, and hauling them back along the 260-foot passage to the storefront on Rua 25 de Março. By the time they finished, they had removed approximately 3.5 tons of currency, 3.5 tons of paper money, pulled through a hole in the ground in the middle of the night. When bank employees arrived on Monday morning, August 8th, they noticed the vault discrepancy during a routine inspection. The scale of the theft was so enormous that it initially seemed impossible. But the hole in the vault floor told the whole story. Brazilian federal police launched an immediate and massive investigation. The tunnel was discovered within days, and the storefront on Rua 25 de Março was identified as the staging point. Forensic teams combed every inch of the tunnel, collecting fingerprints, DNA samples, tool marks, and fibers. The Grama Sintetica business was traced through its registration paperwork, leading investigators to their first suspects. What followed was a sprawling investigation that would eventually implicate more than 24 individuals. The first major arrest came quickly. Within weeks, police identified and detained several members of the tunneling crew. Some were caught spending lavishly, buying luxury cars, expensive properties, and flashy goods in a region where such purchases stood out like beacons. One suspect was found with large quantities of cash hidden in the walls of his home. Another had buried money in his backyard. The discipline that had characterized the planning phase of the heist evaporated almost immediately once the participants had the money in their hands. Greed and paranoia tore the group apart. Some members turned on each other. Others fled to different states in Brazil, hoping to disappear into the vast interior of the country. But the aftermath of the Banco Central heist was not merely a story of arrests and courtrooms. It turned violent, disturbingly violent. In the months following the robbery, at least 8 people connected to the heist or its proceeds were murdered. Some were suspects who had not yet been apprehended. Others were associates or middlemen who had helped launder the stolen cash. The killings suggested that organized crime elements had either been involved from the beginning or had moved in after the fact to seize the money. One victim was found shot to death in his car. Another was kidnapped and never seen again. The blood trail that followed the money painted a grim picture of what happens when a fortune of that magnitude enters the criminal underworld. Over the next several years, Brazilian authorities arrested more than 25 suspects in connection with the heist. Trials were held in waves, with various defendants receiving sentences ranging from a few years to nearly 2 decades in prison. The alleged mastermind, a man named Antonio Joseven Alves dos Santos, was convicted and sentenced to prison, though the exact terms varied across multiple appeals and retrials in the Brazilian court system. Several other key figures, including individuals suspected of providing logistical support, financial laundering services, and even inside information from the bank, were also convicted. However, the legal proceedings were notoriously complex, plagued by appeals, procedural delays, and the labyrinthine nature of the Brazilian judicial system. Despite the arrests and convictions, one staggering fact remains: the vast majority of the stolen money was never recovered. Of the approximately 164 million reais taken from the vault, Brazilian police recovered only a fraction, with estimates suggesting that less than 20% of the total haul was ever found. The rest vanished into a web of purchases, transfers, hidden accounts, and almost certainly into the hands of individuals who were never identified or charged. Some investigators believe the money was laundered through real estate transactions, vehicle purchases, and small businesses across northeastern Brazil. Others suspect that portions of the fortune left the country entirely. The Banco Central tunnel heist remains the largest bank robbery in Brazilian history and one of the largest in the world by the value of currency stolen. It was a crime that combined blue-collar grit with white-collar planning, a feat of physical endurance and engineering precision carried out by people who, by all outward appearances, were unremarkable. The tunnel itself became a kind of dark monument to human ingenuity applied to criminal ends. In the years since, it has been studied by security consultants, law enforcement agencies, and even engineers who marveled at the technical achievement while condemning its purpose. But the legacy of the heist is written not in admiration. It is written in prison sentences and shallow graves. Nearly every person who touched that money saw their life destroyed by it. Some are behind bars, some are dead, some are still missing, and somewhere, buried in bank accounts, or hidden behind walls, or locked in safes that no one will ever open, sits the better part of $70 million that the nation of Brazil has never seen again. So the question remains, where is the money? Who else was involved that was never caught? And in a heist this large, this complex, this bloody in its aftermath, is it possible that the true architects of the operation are still out there, living quietly on the fortune they pulled from beneath the streets of Fortaleza? Let us know what you think in the comments below. The investigation is ongoing. If you have a case you think deserves a file, leave it in the comments. New files open every week. Subscribe, because the truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how long it takes.